Good evening. The City of Bothell Planning Commission meeting for Wednesday, March 4th will come to order. Let the record show that all planning commissioners are present and accounted for except for Commissioner Mike Stahl, who's absent and excused. Do we have any public comments not related to our agenda this evening? Seeing none, we have no minutes to approve. Any new business? No new business, so with that we'll move right into the public hearing part of our agenda, and in this case it's a continuation of the public hearing on the 2015 periodic plan and code update. We have two of our 17 sub-areas that we're reviewing this evening. The two sub-areas are the Brickyard Road sub-area plan as well as the West Hill sub-area plan, and we have a specific parcel reviews that we'll be conducting as well as part of this overall sub-area plan review. So with that, I will turn the agenda over to Bruce Blackburn. Thank you, Bruce.
Good evening, Chair Booth, members of the Commission, and members of the public. Bruce Blackburn here, Senior Planner with the Community Development Department. This, of course, is the continuation of our 2015 periodic plan and code update. And tonight we are talking about two sub-areas, specifically two property owner requests within two of those sub-areas. And essentially we're talking about a property owner request within the West Hill sub-area by Mr. Robert Hurst, and a property owner request within the Brickyard Road Queensgate area by Ms. Colleen Hallett. And I'm going to talk about the Hallett process first, because this is one we've actually had three prior discussions on. And essentially it's located right here on Woodinville Drive, just west of the Wine Valley Siding Facility. Basically the address is 11715 and 11807 Woodinville Drive. The current designation is GC, or General Commercial, which is one of the city's more intense retail type uses, allows them outdoor retail as well. The property owners have requested a change from General Commercial to R9600, or residential, 9,600 square feet per individual lot. And basically the R9600 is a detached or single family residential zone. And of course the location of the facility is west, the Hallett property is west of 405 and just south of Woodinville Drive. And essentially what happens is that the Planning Commission has already made kind of a preliminary recommendation that they'd like to forward to the City Council to approve the Hallett request to go to R9600 designation. However, the Commission had a very specific proviso, and that was only if there could be some language created within the sub-area regulations, and basically you have the plan and you have the sub-area regulations that would allow the existing commercial properties not to have to comply with some very special setbacks and buffering provisions. Now this little diagram here shows the Wine Valley Siding Facility to the east or to the right, and the Hallett's property to the west or to the left. And this red line is the property line. There's a provision underneath the landscape code that requires that they place a 15-foot wide type 1 landscape buffer between General Commercial and R9,600 square foot zoned properties. And of course you can see what that would do. There's an existing basically storage shed is what they use it for within that 15 feet. The other provision that would be of a detriment to the Wine Valley Siding would be there's a 50-foot building setback requirement when you're adjacent to single family R9600 designations. So that would have had those two requirements would have had significantly major impacts upon the operations for this existing business. And that was one of the things the Planning Commission asked that we take a look at, staff take a look at, to see if we could come up with some protections. And essentially what we have done, we have crafted some language and basically put it into Title 12, Chapter 60, which is the sub-area regulations for the Brickyard Road, Queensgate sub-area, that would essentially exempt those general commercial properties from having to comply with those two specific provisions of the code. Oops. So, given that, staff is going to recommend that the Planning Commission approve the Hallett request, basically as pursuant to the Planning Commission's actions, as well as, of course, approve the language in the sub-area plan and the draft language within the code that you've been provided this evening. So I think I'll stop there at the Hallett request and let you kind of take that on, and we'll go from there.
Great, thanks, Bruce. So yeah, why don't we discuss here? And I guess I would ask: is there any? This is a public hearing, so why don't I, before we discuss it here, are there any members of the public that would like to speak to this particular item on our agenda? Seeing three. Sir, to my right in the front, come forward, please.
Good evening.
For the record, if you could state your name and address.
Yes.
And then also, please limit your comments to a total of 3 minutes.
Got it. Terry West, address is 1730 Larkspur Loop, Cle Elum, Washington. I'm here to speak on behalf of Wine Valley, the property that you saw that's adjacent to there. And we're concerned and oppose the amendment for the fact that Mr. Blackburn just showed here a future possibility of losing access into our lumberyard, where we have long-term leases. I've operated the business since the early 1960s. We have 20 employees there that could be displaced if we had to move. If the property became invaluable, a future purchaser of the property may opt to not purchase that property, and that could obviously be a huge economic development for the owners of the property and for the business. I think we've been good neighbors with the Halletts for many years there, and totally understand what they're working to do, but a 60-year-old business with 20 employees with long-term leases and a property that might want to be improved or sold differently somewhere down the road, we're concerned, and would request respectfully that it be kept as a GC.
Great. Thanks for your comments. Before you step down, are there any questions of Mr. West? What I heard in your comments, we basically cited a concern around access to your property as a result of this change.
Yeah.
And explain to me how this change would impact access.
Well,
maybe Bruce can help there.
If you could show that there. Oops. Currently, we have 40 and 50-foot semis that come in about where that blue line is shown there. If we lost access into that one, we bring them around there and then back out the other side. We'd have to back them in or pull them in and jog them around if that could even be done. So we would concerned that we would lose not only a lot of storage space, but the access for semi-truck deliveries.
Okay. Fine. Any other questions of Mr. West? Mr. Clark, Commissioner Clark.
Certainly understand your situation, Mr. West, and appreciate it. What Bruce talked about as far as code modifications, it would basically, I think, the intent of the commission was that you would be, not harmed by the fact that we're rezoning their property, and so we wanted to make sure that the setbacks and that sort of thing were, there was going to be no impact on the adjacent properties, mostly within mind yours. Do you understand that? What they're suggesting is and I'll ask commission when we get into our general discussions, the staff when we get into our general discussions. But I think that what we're trying to do is keep what you're describing from happening if they do allow this. So it's kind of, I think, finding a middle ground that's satisfactory, hopefully to both sides. And that was really the intent. Was if we were going to honor their request for a redesignation, we also wanted to make sure that your business was not harmed. So you understand what Bruce is talking about there?
Yeah, I guess my concern would be 20 years from now when none of us might be around here could it be readopted? Could it be changed when you got now 7 new homeowners over there that file some new suit or some new action that would guarantee that?
Mm-hmm.
Well, future planning commissions and future property owners certainly can issue requests, and we have that happen all the time in front of us, of where decisions were made decades ago, and then we have to make a call. So I can't say that what we would do is absolutely permanent, would never be changed. I mean, that's kind of part of what city planners do and planning commissions do. But I do want to assure you that what we are attempting to do here is both meet the request of the particular property owner as well as your requests, and not have this harm you and your business in any way. So we're doing what, and Bruce, you might explain a little bit more in terms of the modification of the GC language for this particular. Is it specifically just for this parcel that we're talking about? It's not the GC language in general, but it's just for this particular parcel,
essentially what we do is we have citywide regulations that apply everywhere, and then we modify those citywide regulations within sub-district regulations.
Right.
And essentially what these sub-district regulations would say that the general commercial lands here would not have to comply with those special setback provisions and the citywide regulations that would maybe, would really quite affect Wine Valley siding.
Right.
But again, as we all know, that in the future it's hard to predict what could occur.
So it may not be exactly what you want. What you want, we have the Howlett's request and your request, but we are attempting to meet your needs as well as the needs of the property owner that's making the request. Commissioner Cabe.
Sorry, just one other clarifying question. So is it just this property, or is it the whole sub-area where the GC boundaries would be?
Within this sub-area, this is the only place we have a general commercial.
Okay. Yeah, because with the proposal we looked at last month, that was light industrial we were talking about.
Is your microphone on?
No, you're fine.
Okay.
Who's he pointing at?
I don't know. Making sure that one
Mine's
of us
on.
has our mics on or off, whatever. Okay, go ahead.
Thanks for the clarification, Bruce. That's all.
So anyway, thank you, sir. I want to assure you that we appreciate your business, the success of your business, and want to do everything we can that whatever change we do here would not harm it in any way.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
My name's Tracy Charles. I'm 11715 Woodenville Drive, Bothell, and I'm here proxying for Colleen Hallett. She typed up something before she left on vacation, and I'd like to read that if it's okay.
Yes, and if you could just, hopefully it'll be 3 minutes or
You
less.
can cut me off. If it goes longer, you can cut me off.
I don't like doing that, but sometimes they just will run really long, and so at that point
Hopefully I
I'll
won't
remind you.
speed read.
Okay.
Okay. I apologize to the Commission for not being here in person, as I had plans that could not be changed. This issue is very important to us. Tracy Charles will be representing me at this hearing. Since it has been more than 2 months since my rezone has been before the Commission, I wanted to summarize some of the pertinent issues regarding our petition. Number one, in 1978, we rezoned our property as residential to facilitate the building of a residence that was not allowed on GC-zoned property. In 1992, our property was rezoned without our knowledge. No sign was placed in front of our house as it is now, nor were there any notices sent to us before a rezoning meeting, nor after informing us that our property had been rezoned. General commercial tax rates are almost double of residential tax rates. We have been paying commercial rates on this property since '92, a total of 23 years. The damage to us has not just occurred in the last 3 years. We just never realized that we were paying significantly more than our residential neighbors until recently. The staff has already indicated that while it is possible to develop this property, it is most likely not economically attractive to commercially develop this property. The City of Bothell recognizes our home as historically significant to Bothell and the surrounding area. Destroying it for commercial development would most likely be opposed. There is a very real concern that granting our rezone will harm Wine Valley Siding and the City of Bothell's property. This is the issue that I would like to discuss a little further. And at this point, I'm not sure, because of what Bruce has proposed, that we need to do that.
Well, I mean, we want to have we can take the written comments for the record, and it will be entered into as an exhibit in our public record for this. I'm hoping that what you're hearing, both what we're attempting to do for the Hallett request as well as for Wine Valley Siding, that it's satisfactory. So if you're okay with that, we'll just enter it into the record, and we'll proceed accordingly.
Do I just hand this to you?
Hand that to Mr. Blackburn.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm going to exhibit and not mark this as exhibit BQ11.
Great. Is there anyone else from the public? Yes, sir.
My name is, excuse me, Tony Pericchini, 4724 200th Street Southeast, Bothell, one of the partners in the property for Wine Valley Siding Supply. I look at this as we've got community and we've got neighbors, and I think the driver for the Halletts is to reduce their tax base. From the numbers that I hear, it sounds like it's really not going to be a large reduction to go from GC to the R76. And so I think, is there another way that we can handle this? I think the devil in the details, and the concerns I have are the things that I don't know, not the things that I do know. And things can change, and granted, we can have some language in there to protect us on some things, but who's to say when there's next 5, 6, 7 homes there up in arms with us working evenings or weekends or making noise with our forklifts, you know, what kind of pushback are we going to have at that point? And so it seems like just a lot of work and rezone to reduce a tax base, and it doesn't seem like the simplest way to do that. In fact, we would go on record to consider picking up the tab on their additional taxes above and beyond their residential to the GC and pay that price to keep the zoning the way it is. So we disagree with that. We think we're compassionate to the Hallett's request, but not sure it's the best thing for the community to have single-family homes wrapped with freeway and general commercial when it's already a nice little pocket there with general commercial that seems to be working just fine. That was all I had.
Thank you for your comments and for coming. The spelling of your last name?
It's Peruchini.
Again, we really appreciate it. That's a very generous offer that you've made. Are there any questions? Commissioner Stedman.
Yes. Have you actually had that conversation with the Halletts?
We have not.
Okay. That might be the first step, because if they're agreeable to that and you're agreeable to that, then they can simply withdraw their request and the problem goes away.
Yeah, we've had a very good relationship with the two side by side and worked really well together. But like I say, get 4 or 5 others in there, there's bound to be problems.
Right. Right.
And
I mean, ideally, in situations like this, if the two parties can work it out without us, being involved, that's certainly the preferred way to do that. So.
Are there any other questions? I think it's an intriguing offer, one that, frankly, I think we should consider. So, anyway, thank you very much for your comments, and we will definitely take them into consideration.
For your time.
Any other? Yes, sir.
Good evening. Apollo Furman, 11203 East Riverside Drive. I have just a general comment about how this has happened. I really appreciate Bruce and the staff and the way you've tried to work out specific, trying to find common ground. I mean, in the past, I've seen things where, no, this is the code, this is how it's going to be, we can't change it. But it's good to see, hey, this is a very particular situation, very small spot. We can find a solution. And I just want to say I really appreciate that. Not just here, I haven't seen it as much, and sometimes in years past, but other places I go, I do a lot of government affairs work, and a lot of times it's just easier to go, nope, this is the rule, this is it, versus trying to find solutions for, land. It's individualized, and we're not Kansas. It's not just this big flat space. You have different hills or this or that, and trying to find those individual things, I really appreciate that. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Mr. Furman. I can tell you, speaking for all of us up here, I really appreciate the comment. We do attempt to make that. At some point, a decision has to be made, and we have to move forward, and we hopefully make the best decision we can, but where we can, accommodate both sides, try to, appreciate, again, both the property owners as well as the direction of the city, the needs of, like we talked about, the sub-area, the city itself. We try to weigh all those things. So thank you very much for your comments. Do you think, and I guess I'll ask you, Bruce, with regards to the comments from the business owner next door, do we want to do we want to inform the Hallets of this and kind of have that discussion before we make a decision? I mean, because as I read their material, I would agree. I think their primary concern was the impact of this zoning of the GC zoning on their taxes. I think that was the primary concern.
Yeah, that's their stated reason for the rezone. Yes,
Commissioner Gastineau.
It's still going before council, right? So we have time. I mean, we need to move this forward, and that's a contract between two homeowners. I mean, we need to finish our work, and if they want to withdraw this at any time because they've reached an agreement, they can do that. But they still have a chance for this to get withdrawn before it gets approved by council.
Okay.
So I would think that we finish our work, what we feel comfortable doing, because that's an agreement that could have a lot of details and take a lot. And we're pushing. We got 2 weeks to get this done.
And are you saying that if we were to take this request back up, say after June 30th, that we would potentially miss the 2015 planning year? Is that?
No, I'm just saying whatever. If the Hallets could withdraw their things up until the council approves it. So, but we're just we move this forward with how we feel about it.
I mean, I agree with your concerns about us wanting to complete our plan review. We have that. We need to have that done by the end of this month. I agree with you. At the same time, I'm not quite ready for the Planning Commission to just let go of this issue. If this is something that we could revisit in a timely manner. So those are my thoughts. I don't know if Commissioner Clark.
Yeah, Commissioner Gastineau, I definitely appreciate that comment. The concern I would have about that is that if we make a decision tonight one way or the other, I think I would encourage them to negotiate and figure this out on their own as well. But I think if we make a decision tonight, it would skew the desire of one or the other party to do that. If we vote in favor, I think the Hallets have no reason to talk to them about that, and vice versa. So that concerns me. I also would like to find out, do we have time to let them do that, and maybe say if we were going to reschedule this discussion for a future date, say next week, and say if in the next week you can come up with an agreement that would allow the Hallets to withdraw their request. That would seem reasonable to me if we have that time.
I think my only modification to that I would like to have that be after this month. We've got a very full and important timeline that we need to finish our overall plan review. But if we could pick this up, soon after, I would like us to do that.
Well, here's our issue. On the 11th, we're going to talk about citywide elements. Mm-hmm. On the 21st, we're going to talk about the sub-areas. And we're done.
Well, and when you say we're done, that was my comment about the 2015 planning year.
Yes.
And that if we do not make a decision on this, then this will basically go out of this year. Is that?
That's correct, yes. Well, and again, it's always true that right up to actually when the council passes the ordinance, which is going to be in late June, a person could withdraw the request.
Mm-hmm. So could we? I guess I'm just Commissioner Clark.
I have just before we move on. I just want to I have a couple other questions.
Yes, I'm sorry.
At some point, okay. Is that okay to go ahead now?
Please do.
Okay. Yeah. Bruce, you mentioned, and I think it's a creative solution to modify the Bothell Municipal Code, but I had, when I heard that, I had the exact same question or concern that the owner of the siding company has, which is, that's great for now, but the municipal code can be changed again in the future and potentially have this protection taken away from them. I want to know, is there another protection we could provide them that would say it'd be a recorded action that would go against title, that would guarantee, it makes it more of a land, property-to-property issue. It may be in addition to this code, but something could be recorded against the land that would be irrevocable. And I think that if I'm going to support the Hallets proposal, I really believe that needs to be, they need to have an assurance that 10 or 20 years down the road, the municipal code is not going to be revised to take this protection away. Do you have a thought about that?
The only way to do that legally with the city involved would be some type of a development agreement. And that's a very complex, costly, I mean, the amount of value that they're paying in taxation fees is pale in comparison to that process.
Okay. So a further question I have is, you mentioned that you're doing something to deal with the setback requirement and the buffering provision. Are there other requirements that exist that would also be affected by the rezone, such as noise levels or that sort of thing?
The other one that would affect and potentially is noise level. That's something we cannot waive. That's actually a state WAC, Watch and Advisory Code provision, and we cannot adjust that. So that's in place no matter what the zoning is next door.
Okay.
And the special setback and the buffering are the two items that would really affect Wine Valley Siding.
Okay. I would say that then, just to make my statement, that if there is not anything that can hold unharmed the adjacent property owner, and I would extend that not just to the siding company, but to any other properties or zone GC around this. I understand there's a City of Bothell-owned property that is adjacent. I think it should be applicable to all the GC properties around this. I would frankly have a hard time supporting the Hallett's proposal, given that it would do harm to somebody, to the adjacent property owner. I'll leave it at that.
Commissioner Gastineau.
Bruce, when the zoning, the GC zoning allows for some uses outright, like adult family homes, adult daycare centers. I mean, there's some pretty.
There are a few of those that are allowed, yes.
I mean, so there's uses that are not compatible. I think we're getting caught up on this. I think they have a use, and we're not taking away their use, so they have a use that they can use forever. And if they change their use, we're taking away the provision that they have to apply for the buffer against residential neighborhoods. I don't know what would be the other concerns we have for this rezone.
I'm sorry. From the standpoint of we can address the issue that would affect Wine Valley Siding underneath this action.
Right.
Basically, the idea is to take that out. I think what the folks from Wine Valley Siding were identifying was that they're concerned about future residents who may not have quite the same good relationship that the Halletts have with Wine Valley Siding, and that's I think what they were identifying their concern as.
But whatever gets built there, if whatever in the future, something else could get built other than the house. I don't see what we're getting at here.
You're referring to the Hallett property, and
yeah, or on the Hallett property. I mean, you could build adult family homes with daycare centers. I mean, there's things that are permitted outright in the GC zone. I mean, it's permitted, and so if we're worried about the buffer, so if we change the zoning on the Hallett's property, if the Wine Valley Siding continue to use their property as much, just as they are now, because it's permitted outright. And if they changed it and wanted to do a different use on it, through this action, we've said that you do not have to apply by buffers next to residential properties. And so, how are they harmed?
I'm maybe everybody else is following. I'm not tracking with you. Are you in supporting the Hallett request to change back to R9600?
Because I don't see how Wine Valley's harmed by this.
The discussion around potential noise impact and this idea that in the future there could be changes and that this presents a risk to the business and could at some point even motivate them to change the location of their business. I think this poses a future risk to the business if we don't do this correctly. I think that's what Commissioner Clark is saying.
That is correct, and I'd take that one step further to say that I believe that it might result in a diminished property value if and when they decide to sell the property to have something that is revocable, because a 50-foot buffer, as you can see on the map there, takes away a pretty significant part of their existing business. And I would guess that if
we're changing, that would have to be another rezone request to change it again. Someone would have to come in. It would be posted like it is now, not like it was back in the 90s or the 80s when they said they didn't get postings when the Halletts got changed before. This is a big deal to change this. This only comes up every, you have to go in and request it once a year. You have to pay for it, and if not that, it's every 5 years. This is not a simple process.
Well, I I don't think that's correct. I think that the only thing that would have to happen for the Wine Valley siding to be put at a disadvantage would be a change in the code. I'm not suggesting a rezone. I'm talking about if they adopt the code as specified here with the relief from the setback and the landscape buffer for the siding company, that's great. That protects them for now, but it's not irrevocable. At some point, without any public notice, without any opportunity for comment at all, the Bothell municipal code could be changed back to eliminate this protection for the Wine Valley siding, and they would have nothing to say about it. It could be unilaterally enacted, is my
If I'm
understanding.
mistaken, Bruce, we're going to have this in the sub-area plan, correct?
Yes, in fact, I was going to go to that page and show you where that was.
So it's going to be in the sub-area. It's not just in the development code. It's in the zoning. This is probably a comprehensive plan amendment. This would have to be changed through another petition action.
Well, but the only thing that would be a comprehensive plan amendment, as far as I understand, I may be wrong, is the fact that the designation of the Hallett property is being taken from GC to 9600. I wasn't aware that you were going to put as part of the comprehensive plan amendment that they were going to be that there would be this buffer waiver.
Yes, and as a matter of fact, I think I picked that up from the previous Planning Commission discussion, is that we want to make this a very solid protection and so I actually have crafted language that would basically exempt that specific area, the general commercial area, from having to comply with the special buffering and setback provisions underneath the code. So they would have to do a plan amendment and a code amendment concurrently.
To remove the protection?
Yes.
So, okay, I was not understanding that the actual comprehensive plan amendment would include that protection for the other owner. So for me, it boils down to then, what is the noise level issue? Is there a legitimate concern there
That's a state code. That everybody has it on every piece of property.
Right.
If you have between two neighbors.
But is it different between a GC zone and a 9600?
No, the zoning is not affected by that. It's one of those things that's a use kind of a provision.
So the decibel level, or however they measure that, is the same between GC and 9600 as it is between two GC properties?
Yes.
Okay.
Depends on the use. In this case, the Hallets have a single-family use, so that special provision applies. The decibel readings have to comply with the very set criteria.
I guess I'm still not clear.
If you stand on the Hallett properties, if you're a general commercial zone, but you're right now a single-family use, and you have the Wine Valley siding, can only emit so much sound levels into the Hallets because of the use, not the zoning. The sound provisions of state law reflect uses, not zoning.
Okay, so what you're saying, you're confirming that the requirement of Wine Valley siding would be exactly the same whether we did this comprehensive plan amendment or not?
For noise, it would be, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
That's all addressed on.
Thank you.
On page BR6 as well.
Commissioner Stedman, go ahead. Do you have any other question, Commissioner Clark? Or no? Okay. Commissioner Stedman.
Bruce, I just want to make sure that in the event that there is a fire or the storage building that is adjacent to the Hallett property is damaged or destroyed, that they could in fact rebuild or replace that exact building. Is that correct with the provisions that are in here now?
Well, they actually have two protections. One is the provisions that we have crafted here that basically says, okay, I don't have to have that special setback provision, and that's the real tough one, that 50-foot setback.
Exactly.
The other one, of course. No, this would be the primary protection.
Right. See, based upon that, and that's my understanding as well, based upon that, I absolutely agree with Commissioner Gastineau that there really is no harm to Wine Valley siding by rezoning this that I see with these provisions in here.
Mm-hmm. Any other? I'll just say that I would agree with that based on what I've been told.
I think if we go beyond what we're ruling or potentially making a decision on and what we're seeing in front of us today, we get into hypotheticals, and I mean I can think of many. One that I think of is I'm sure at this point the Hallets don't intend to sell their property and have it redeveloped, but let's just say that were to happen. I'm being hypothetical, and now we've got a number of R9600 lots on that property. There are multiple homes. complaints about noise, sawdust is coming across the property line, but those are all hypotheticals, I guess. I mean, that may or may not happen, and so I think at this point we have to make a decision as to whether we're going to support the request, with the staff changes as written, or whether we want to postpone it based upon what we've heard this evening to see if the both property owners could perhaps work this out and the request could be withdrawn. Commissioner Stedman.
I'd really like to go back to what Commissioner Gastineau suggested, which is we go ahead and make our suggestions now. In the meantime, have the two parties discuss a solution that's workable for them, and then if they come up with something before the City Council adopts whatever they're going to adopt, then they can simply withdraw it. So we're keeping everything on track, and yet we're still allowing the two parties to come up with a solution that does not involve the city, because it's really our two property owner issues, in my opinion.
Bruce, can we do that and yet have that time allowed for the property owners to discuss this, and then either before it comes before the City Council or during the City Council, have one or more of us even come along with you and make sure that a full explanation is given to the City Council of what we're recommending? We want to make sure that they've really seen the level of work we've done this evening to kind of work our way through this.
Yeah, and I think that's an adequate solution. And basically the situation is that you are preparing a recommendation. The council is the ultimate decision-making body on this particular action. And if they hear your recommendation in writing, but there's a change to that recommendation or something has changed it, they have all the ability in the world to make a change to your recommendation and to pass something different.
Okay. Commissioner Clark?
I think I just have one more thing. The way you've got the modification of the sub-area plan written to me is I guess a little bit confusing, and I'm wondering if instead of referring to the three Hallett properties as a distance away from Brickyard Woodinville intersection, could we just use, say, the tax identification number or the address? Would that I guess I want to make sure that there's no confusion in the future about which parcels this applies to.
The issue we've had with identifying tax identification parcels or addresses is that those things change.
Yeah.
And so we've been kind of, okay, if you have a fixed point, which is the intersection of Brickyard Road, you measure it. It's cumbersome. I completely agree with you. But it's the one thing that says if the Hallets do subdivide and we have 5 or 6 different tax parcel numbers, it's still doable. Ultimately, the idea is that the map is controlled, but we like to have a little bit of discussion as to where that is in the language as well.
I guess I'd maybe then I understand. I guess I'd clarify it. It says accepting 3 parcels that are located 530 feet west of the intersection of Woodinville Drive and Brickyard Road.
Oh.
Can we say between 530 and 400 feet or whatever that
actually that's a good idea.
Bracket is? So
yeah,
that
that's a good idea.
We're clear on that? Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Cabe.
Yeah, I would be in support of moving forward with the action we've discussed tonight. It doesn't seem like we'd be in any different location or different spot. 10 years from now, a different property owner could come up and request that it be changed in 9600 and develop. You'd have to go through the same permit process and posting that would be required to get out of the comp plan and out of the code. So if we change it now and the protection are in place, they'd have to go down the same path. So I don't really see how Wine Valley siding is damaged in this case, but I do like that there would be a time buffer to where maybe you guys can come to an agreement if you don't think the protections are in place for your guys' future.
I guess I would just kind of in closing comment, and then if one of you could maybe think about articulating a motion, be thinking that up. So I would be in favor of the Hallett request as well, if we really again have assurances about current or future risk and harm to the siding business, and that I'd want this discussion that we've had to be fully articulated to the City Council, that in other words that the Planning Commission made this motion, voted on it, and yet there was this very strong concern about this, and that there is this time period that we wanted to keep moving on, but but between now and when the city council reviews it, that we hope there's further information. So with that, I would be in favor of it. Is there one of you that would like to try to articulate a motion here? I think it's basically to approve the staff request.
Yeah, I move to recommend approval of the Hallett amendment request to adopt the draft Planning Commission findings, analysis, and conclusions, and the recommend to the City Council approve the amendment.
And did that motion include a
provision
amendment to make the changes that I just was articulated for the findings?
And
Yes.
as part of that, for staff to make the corrections as requested tonight.
Any discussions to the motion as articulated by Commissioner Gastineau? Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second it.
All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Okay, we move now to, before we move to the West Hills sub-area, Bruce, are we going to come back and do a review of the sub-area language for Brickyard Road, Queensgate, or are we going to go to the particular parcel request in West Hill and then do the language review?
To be honest with you, the Brickyard Road has already been reviewed by the commission. You've already identified it. Really, the only outstanding item in Brickyard Road was the Hallett. And the only reason I included that language in here was because we had a few changes to the sub-area language.
Agreed. I just want to make sure we are in a mode now of wanting to check things off and making sure that we're done here. So as far as the Planning Commission is concerned, we've completed our review of the Brickyard Road, Queensgate sub-area.
Yes, you have.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
It's your job.
Did you have a comment, Commissioner Gaston?
Not all.
Okay.
No.
All right.
Right.
Commissioner Vliet.
Bruce, just really quick. I mean, these are really small things. On BR6,
Yes, sir.
Microphone on.
at the bottom line, residential is misspelled. And then, let's see. There's one that I had.
I'm sorry, what was your change on BR6?
Oh, just the
Oh,
residential
the spelling.
misspelling.
Okay, yep.
Oh, that's
And
interesting.
that's all I have.
That's really misspelled.
Good. We do want to improve the quality of our language and our plan, so thank you. Okay, let's move forward in our agenda to the West Hill sub-area. This is our third review of the West Hill sub-area plan. And so what we want to do this evening is both complete the language for the sub-area plan in its entirety, as well as hear this request from the Mr. Hurst with regards to his specific parcel. So did you have any presentation you wanted to give to us?
I do.
Okay.
This is a request by Mr. Robert Hurst to redesignate a piece of property located within the West Hill sub-area. It's about 1.1 acres in size, and it's located just south of 180th Street and east of the Tote River Pipeline right-of-way. It's basically a big, wide swath through that area. And the access to the property is provided by a little stubbed street, but has not been approved, of 89th Place Northeast. And essentially what the situation is that he is surrounded by some different zoning designations. I'll get a little bit more into that a little bit. And as well as, of course, a lot of single-family residential throughout the area. Now, here are the zoning designations for the area. Basically, the areas kind of to the west and southwest are zoned R7200. Those are part of the areas that were annexed in the city of Bothell this year. The areas to the north and east are 8400. This particular area, it includes, basically the properties as shown here, that the bright yellow, is zoned R9600, which is the city's standard single-family residential designations. And of course, Mr. Hurst would like to have this property rezoned to R7200 to basically take advantage of some, a little bit more flexibility in the lot circles, as well as to kind of have a little more connection with the areas to the west, because I think that what his belief is that he's more connected to here. Now, staff has taken a pretty good look at this request. And I think that the staff recommendation is going to be one of two things. One is to either keep the 9,600, or as an alternative, which would also work fine, would be to keep it at an 8,400. We went through this back and forth quite a bit, and it seems as if this particular property is more adjacent, more related to the properties to the north, to the south, and the east than it is to the properties to the west. The properties to the west, of course, are separated by the Tolt River pipeline right-of-way, and where's a big, huge Puget Sound Energy overhead electrical line there that kind of basically gives an additional little buffer there. So, and again, this is a tough one because I know Mr. Hurst would like to do something different with this property. It's a 1.1 acres. We're talking about either 4 or 5 lots capability, which is not really a large difference. But it just seems as if the existing established character of the areas here is more attuned to 8,400 or 9,600 than it is to 7,200. And in the little tiny teeny orange, which are kind of hard to read there, I'm sorry, I've actually put the actual lot sizes of those surrounding areas, so you can get a little bit flavor of what their existing areas are. One of the things that I can identify to you is that these lots up here are subdivided lots, and these 2 lots are subdivided lots. So they are, no matter what happens, they have their zoning in place, and they don't their use is in place. So anything we do here won't affect them. And I wanted to identify that in case somebody is concerned, well, if we get a different zoning, what does that mean for us? It doesn't mean anything. Basically, you keep the same single-family house. So that is our staff recommendation, to either retain the 9,600 or, as an alternative, assign an 8,400 designation. And, of course, this is, our proposed amendment that you'll talk about later on, perhaps, or not. And I think at this time I'll just turn it over to the commission and or the public for discussion.
Great. Thanks, Bruce. Really appreciate it. I think there will be a good discussion here on the dais about it, but are there any members of the public that would like to speak with regards to the request that's been proposed by staff? Yes, sir.
I'm Bob Hurst. Thanks for hearing me tonight. I'm a business owner and been a property owner in Bothell for 40 years, since the mid-'70s. This is a property I bought as a personal investment from my retirement about 10 years ago. And with the market taking a tank about 5-6 years ago, I've held on to it since, about $6,000 to $7,000 a year in property taxes and carrying costs. And now I'd like to think about developing it and cashing in. It does make a big difference between R7200 and R8400. When we do the exact math on it, it yields one more lot. It's only one more house, which isn't a big impact on the surrounding community, but a lot in today's dollars is worth a lot of money, so it makes a big impact for me. An interesting point on this is you see the Hearst property, mine on the east. That's a mirror image property designated as 17902. That was one farm back before the Tolt River pipeline went in. It's exactly the same piece of property on an old plat. If you widen the screen, if we were widening the scope on what's shown here, down where the screen is all R7200. It's a huge mass of R7200 right there. It's predominantly R7200. The scope of this picture is close focused, but there's a lot more R7200 down to the south and west than is shown here. It's a big portion of it. This is just correcting a small corner of what's left. As far as changing the city amount, it amounts to maybe one more house, which, like I say, one lot is a significant impact for me and what I can sell it for. I don't think it's going to hurt the city at all. It's not going to increase that many car trips on the local road and things. And as far as preserving it to go along with the exact adjacent houses, those were built 20 years ago and times have changed. We need more density. We need more houses, more affordable houses for people in the area. That has changed. 10,000 square foot lots are 9,600. They're a luxury at this point. They're nice, but those days are gone in town. And it's time to look at smaller, higher density. And when we do the math, R8400 is nice, but it's not going to yield the extra lot I need. Did the math, it came out to like 4.8 lots instead of 5. It just wasn't enough to make it work. I do have a question. What's the city's ruling on rounding? If I have a 4.8 or 4.9 yield, can I round up? there's no rounding up, is there?
Bruce is shaking his head. But
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
saw that.
Commissioner Booth, would you like me to respond
Yes,
to that?
please.
Yeah, the city does not round up. There is no rounding up provision.
Okay,
So if it's
that makes it
4.9,
even-
it's 4.
4, yes.
Yep.
Yeah, so that makes it even more important, because one of these lots, one of the calculations comes out really close, especially when you detract for the road and things that have to go in, depending on the road designs and street improvements. So it's important, or 7,200 is significant. When I originally bought the property, one of my ideas was there's a local builder, you all know, Cam West, and they do some really nice little clustered high-density communities, and that's really what I wanted to do 10 years ago. I don't know if that's possible or not. R5400 or something is a real stretch from your end of it. But that was kind of the idea, do a clustered community, nice common green areas, had some preliminary sketches done that way, and it seemed pretty interesting. There aren't that many large, quote-unquote, pieces of property in town to do anything with. An acre is still a big piece of property in this town. There's just not a lot left. So why squander it at R9600 or even 8400? There's an opportunity for another lot. There wouldn't be a lot of impact on the surrounding people. It's just one more house. And like I say, it does have a big impact on me because lots are 6 digits now, and that's a big impact for my retirement.
Great.
That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Hurst.
Thank you.
We very much
Thank you for
appreciate you coming tonight and for your comments.
Oh, I appreciate you hearing me. Thank you.
Thank you. Bruce, I had one question. So that piece that he mentioned on the screen there, this would be to the west of the Hurst property, that 17902. Yes. What is the current designation of that? It's not clear from the...
it is R7200.
It's R7200.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Are there any other public comments with regards to this request? Seeing none, we'll move to our own internal discussion of this. Are there any comments? Commissioner Stedman.
Bruce, as I read through the material that you had prepared for us, it seems the only concern the city has is access to the lot. Is that correct, or?
Well,
getting access to the
there is
property?
access to the property, yes, and actually it's provided by a public right-of-way.
Right.
So it's just an undeveloped right-of-way. So when you said it was just the road, it's there. The right-of-way is there.
The right-of-way is there. The roadway is not.
Okay,
Right.
so it's right-of-way.
Right.
Yes.
Because I drove the area the other day and drove the neighborhoods behind, and I mean, candidly, when I looked at it, I went, looks like everything else here is R7200, and I don't see an issue unless it was strictly access to the property.
No, primarily what our concern was that we were looking at the properties that were basically directly adjacent to it, and they had the most relationship to this individual property. And we're looking at it and saying, boy, those are all at a higher lot area, and I know it's unusual, but that is how the existing development pattern was established. And, we looked at that and said, maybe it makes more sense to keep it at that type of a development orientation.
Again, when I drove the neighborhoods around it, I looked at the R7200s, and I was actually quite impressed with the neighborhoods that they can actually build on the smaller lots. And given the fact that the mirrored property is R7200 as well, from my perspective, I don't see an issue. Rezoning it to R7200.
Mm-hmm.
Commissioner Gastineau.
Yeah, I was going to jump on that real quick, and I'm usually following staff. I don't follow staff on this one. We've rezoned some things throughout the things that make a difference, and we don't know. We haven't drawn the plats. These are minimum lot size. We don't know if he's going to get an extra lot because you have 7,200, but we know it's not going to be much more than one if it is, because if he has to reduce his lot size for roads and his lot counts and things. So I'm a support of the applicant's request here of 7,200 also. More than I have been on probably any other property.
Mr. Vliet.
Yeah, and I'm certainly open to that request and the rezone. As staff mentioned and is shown up there, it is surrounded by 9600s. On the other side, it's 8400. But there's tons, as Mr. Hurst mentioned, there's a lot of 7200 south of there, and that seems to be the new kind of standard development practices. So, I personally, on a preferential side of things, I prefer a little bigger lot sizes because I think they just give a little more separation between the houses, but it seems like things are moving towards 7,200, and that's what people are building. So I don't know, it's tough, and it's separated from the other 7,200s with the Tolt River pipeline. So it's a tough one for me, but I'd be open to hearing what other people have to say.
And I think Bruce can, when we talk about separations from a house and all residential through, I think it's 5400D up through the 9600, it's all 15 feet. It's 5 foot. It's either 7.5 or 5 and 10, however you want to do it.
All the setbacks are exactly the same.
So when you talk about how it's going to look on a lot, it's just really talking about the circle sizes. And we have some pretty restrictive compared to other places. We have to draw a circle so these lots don't get narrowed up. We have some pretty standard size lots requirements here. So those ideas that we get these smaller lots, we actually have some pretty good protections for those, if we don't want that to happen here. So,
are there any comments or questions? No.
I'm in support of Mr. Hurst's proposal. I think 7,200 does make sense in this area, surrounded by all the like neighborhoods to the south.
I think the discussion has been very good, and I had a chance to drive the property as well, and the surrounding area. And I usually track with staff, and I understand staff's thinking in terms of wanting kind of Bothel's traditional R9600 lot. What I look at is our future as far as both density, and I think the chances of a little more of an affordable product probably would come with a smaller lot size. Not guaranteed, of course, but there could be. And so I think smaller lot size could drive a little bit more of an affordable product. Of course, it all depends on the quality and the type. But and I do recognize staff's point about that this this Hearst property is kind of more associated with those lots to the north rather than the R7200 separated by the Tolt pipeline. But taking all that into account, I'm in favor of the property owners, the applicant's request. So, do you want to make a comment?
And if I may, instead of just having the Hearst property designated 7,200, would it make sense to do the entire 9,600, just switch that over to 7,200?
You're talking about the piece, the property even to the north.
Basically, get rid of the 9,600 and go to the 7,200 there.
What would the effect of that? What would the effect of doing that? Obviously, we have product on those lots now. What would the effect of that be?
None.
Would there be? Well, when we say none, I mean, would it potentially help to drive a developer buying one or two or more of the lots and combining them into 7,200? Or, in other words, would it potentially drive some future action that wouldn't otherwise be there?
Even at the 7,200, there's only two of those lots that have the square footage to potentially subdivide. And both of those have very recent houses on them. They're not old at all. They're 1994 and 2002 and stuff like that. So from that standpoint, it's not very conceivable that somebody would be able to subdivide one of those two pieces of property.
The other question I have, though, is if we take a larger action than what the applicant is requesting, do we have to go through another notification process with the rest of the property owners that the city is contemplating that? We could then have kind of open this up further to further public comment if we were to do that.
Usually what happens is we send the notice out, and it's a pretty general notice. Look, this action is happening, and this could affect your piece of property. And so that shouldn't be the case. However, the commission is like leery about, let's not affect anything. We'll just draw a circle around the Hearst property.
Yeah, it's my concern is that this evening we've had the property owner appear. No one has appeared opposing this. We open this up to more. I'm not saying that maybe shouldn't happen at a future time, but I just think another dynamic kind of comes into play. So I don't think I'd be in favor of that, but I'd love to hear any other comments. Commissioner Clark.
First of all, I agree with the commissioners that were in support of the 7,200 for Mr. Hearst property. As far as the rest of is concerned, the way I see it is there's a lot of aging homes in this area on the east side, Kirkland, Bothell, Woodinville, and at some point it's going to make sense to redevelop those properties. And I wonder how that's going to happen, frankly, when you've got, because it's a difficult equation when you look at, okay, what's the value of this home, and if I'm going to put a bunch of homes together and try to do a plat out of that, it's very difficult to do that. But at some point in the future, I'm assuming that equation is going to work where somebody could go in and buy a bunch of existing lots and rebuild on them. But one of the only ways I see it happening is if the underlying zoning of those lots is reduced from what it was when it was originally built on. There has to be some, I think, increase in density over what that developer would get if the zoning stayed the same. Also, our job in looking at the comprehensive plan and doing the review, we're looking ahead at a minimum, I think, 10 years, and in some cases as far as 30 to 50 years. And I frankly couldn't tell you in 50 years what the homes on that property are going to look like, and maybe it will never make sense to redevelop them or redevelop those properties. But if those are rezoned, just looking at the square footages, if those are rezoned to R7200, I think if you put 3 of those together, you could potentially get 4 lots out of it instead of 3.
Yes.
I mean, you're probably at around 33,000 feet or 32,000 feet with the 3 that are on the right, or that sort of thing. So what I'm getting at is that we don't know right now what is going to happen in the future, but one thing we know for sure is those homes are going to age. At some point, they're going to be obsolete, and there's going to have to be something done with those homes, whether a new home is built on that property or there's a redevelopment. And I think that I'd like to encourage that we get creative with allowing a number of options for developers in the future. So I actually would support taking this entire island area and rezoning it as R7200. I think that makes that eliminates an island, frankly, of property that is zoned at a lower density than all of the surrounding property, with the exception of the high school there.
If I could, Mr. Stedman.
I would just want to make sure that, based upon our prior conversation, that would not have an impact on property taxes.
They're individually subdivided pieces of property right now, one house, one. So I don't think that would have a big effect until they actually make a change.
But real estate taxes from a 7,200 versus a 9,600?
Rarely is different.
Okay.
I mean, we haven't seen any situation where they actually say, this is the tax for 9,600, this is the tax for 72, this is the tax for 7,200.
Okay,
it's usually, this is the tax for single family.
Right, okay. And that's my understanding as well. I just wanted to get your read on that. Based upon that, and I would absolutely support your suggestion of rezoning all of that 7,200, because I agree with Commissioner Clark. At some point in time, developers are going to take a look and say, okay, these 3 houses are in disrepair or in declining condition, so it makes sense to come up with an assemblage, and instead of putting on 3, you're able to build 4. That actually benefits the community, in my opinion, because you get a new product. You get, as was discussed earlier, potentially low income housing is more affordable housing, I guess is a better way to say that, more affordable housing, as opposed to something that would be on a 9,600. So I would support that.
Commissioner Vliet.
I guess I would be in support of rezoning the request, but I would not be in support of designating the whole area as 7,200. I think I just would like to have more time to deliberate that. I guess if we're just going to do that for this part, we could we could pick out all kinds of areas around the sub area, but I just think tonight this person came to us with this very specific request, and I guess I'd like to take some other time after the code update to talk about possibly rezoning the rest of it a year from then.
Mr. Cade.
Yeah, I would agree with Commissioner Vliet. I'm concerned about maybe creeping our 7,200 into areas that are currently 8,400 or 9,600. We're right now looking at a magnifying glass. It'd be nice to zoom out and see kind of what the rest of the area looks like.
Actually, I can do that.
Yeah, I was going to actually request that, because is this truly an island of R9600, or are there other R9600s in close proximity?
This is, of course, wrong one. This is, of course, the entire sub-area. And you can see this 7,200 represents a very significant area. and the 9,600 is a very small portion, basically just right off an area that is 8,400.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm
sorry. This is the
so
first
where's the is there any other? Where's the next R9600 besides that
It
parcel?
is all the way up here.
Yeah. So it makes sense to at least go to R8400,
Yes.
if not R7200. That's interesting. Any other comments or questions? So from my standpoint, I'm very supportive of the applicant's request. With regards to expanding it further, I'm supportive of that as well. My only concern is that if as I expressed, this changing of the public notification process, which then changed the dynamic even for the applicant's request, that concerns me. And let me just ask once again, if we were to expand this beyond the applicant's request and that entire 9,600 the city would say, hey, this is what we're intending to doing, wouldn't there necessarily be an additional sign posted? Right now there's a sign, but there'd be another sign posted saying for these properties we're now considering a zoning request. We would go through our normal public notification process, and I can just possible of other public comment coming back opposing. So,
Certainly
Commissioner Gastineau.
Oh, I'm sorry.
My question is, if his application was for the whole area, which it was not.
It was not.
Okay, so it was not. So these neighbors, when they look it up, it wasn't for the whole thing. So I'm all on board with what you guys are proposing, except for that reason. Okay, if he would have came in and the staff would have said, no, we're going to, but since he didn't ask for the whole area, I think it makes more sense for us to do it. But that's opening something up that I don't want to do for him. So instead of getting his sidetracked, I think we should stick to what he's asked us for. And so it doesn't make sense to most times to put 7,200 in the middle of an R96. I know that, but we're down to the last. We're down to here, and I don't
For
want to
2015.
screw him moving forward.
Yeah, I think the way I would word it is that by expanding this, that we actually inject some potential risk to the applicant's request. And I think there's also good comment in terms of just further analysis as to what we want for this neighborhood. But I do agree with both Commissioner Stedman and Clark that the future of this at some point will be something less than 9,600. I agree with that. But I think for this evening, I'm more supportive of just voting on the particular request. Commissioner Clark.
I'll just say that after hearing the other commissioners' comments, starting with David's, I tend to agree. I think, and I'll say that I believe that this area probably, again, in the next 10 to 20 to 30 to 40 years probably will be rezoned, regardless of what we do tonight. So I think I agree with you that I think we don't want to risk Mr. Hurst's proposal by expanding it, and I appreciate your comments, and I've changed my mind.
So, any further discussion? I think we're ready. Would someone propose a motion?
I move to adopt the staff findings, analysis, conclusions, and recommendation as revised as Planning Commission. Oops, I'm sorry. Wrong one. Yeah, no, right one. As revised as Planning Commission findings, analysis, and conclusions, and recommendation, and assign an R7200 plan designation for the Hearst property.
Any discussion on the motion before we second it or vote on it? The way you've requested is that we're moving as revised. Now, as revised, does that mean basically we're accepting what staff is recommending, not what we've just discussed? And so do we need to?
No.
You revise it basically. The commission's recommendation is R7200.
Correct.
Yes.
All right.
So that's the
We're all
revision.
good.
All
right. We're all good.
Yes.
All right. Is there any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. So excellent. I thought that was a terrific discussion. And please, again, I guess on all of these, but I just would like to reiterate, Bruce, as this goes forward to the City Council, that if you can, and one of us, I may be there with you or whoever from staff presents this at City Council, but please articulate this level of passion and discussion that was placed on this particular request to the City Council for us.
Yeah, we actually do prepare pretty detailed findings.
Great, thank
So
you.
You'll be looking at this, oh my gosh, do I have to read this whole thing?
Well, and I know you do. I just want to make sure you provide the level of work that we did on this evening. Now, with regards to our agenda, is there anything else with regards to the West Hills sub-area plan that we need to review from a language standpoint?
No, in fact, this was a very simple one. This is almost purely a map amendment, because the sub-area language actually talks about 76, 96, 84, and 7200, so we're actually don't have to make any changes to this language itself.
Is there any further discussion from the Planning Commission with regards to the sub-area plan as written? I know we've made cosmetic changes as well as efficiency changes that we've done in other sub-areas that we've done with this, but are there any other questions or comments? Commissioner Vliet?
I just had a question, Bruce. Like, do we know eventually? I'm not going to search through the packet. It's a specific question, but it has to do with sidewalks down on the highway at the bottom of the sub area of if and when there'll be more accessibility for people along the highway.
You're referring to Bothell Way?
Yeah,
and getting the sidewalks down to that?
the sidewalk along Bothell Way.
Oh,
towards
along
Kenmore,
Bothell Way.
at the southern part of this sub area.
Yeah, there is a phase 2B3 or something like that. I'm not sure what the number is, but they are actually the improvements that were around Wayne Curve
Yeah.
are being continued to the city's city limits to the west.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just
That'll
I'm
be
not
great.
sure exactly where the status is, but that is a planned project.
Okay, great.
Let me just also support, and again, I know that's kind of part of our overall transportation plan, whether it's at Bothell Way or even further north from Bothell High School in particular. There are several arterials that travel down to the Bothell River, one by Popkini Field, and then the next one up that comes down to 190th. We need sidewalks on those, and I just want to make sure that that's really called out in this particular, and I know we've done this throughout the city, but we would want to have that really highlighted for this particular sub-area.
Yeah, this is an interesting area because it is one that we just took over as far as the annexation process goes. And there actually has been some improvement for pedestrian walkways. 91st Avenue's got a little basically widened shoulder area with a little bit of a curb. But 83rd is a little more challenging because, again, we go from the city of Bothell into the city of Kenmore. So anything we do there is going to have to be a joint project. But I know there's a lot of discussion about that.
Great, thank you. So at this point, we are going to not conclude, but continue the public hearing, and we will need to have a motion to do that. So let's, if there could be a motion to continue the public hearing to our next week's, which would be the evening of March 11th.
Yeah, I move that we continue the public hearing on the 2015 period plan and code update to the March 11th.
Second.
All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Moving on in our agenda, we do not have a study session, any old business, any other reports from staff?
Just the one thing is that next week's packet agenda is going to be really big. It's all of the sub-area regulation plans that you guys have looked at over the past. So get your weights out. And get
Is this going to fill up our mailbox?
It will definitely fill up your mailbox.
All right. Thank you for the warning. We'll come prepared. Reports from members? Seeing none, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
We are adjourned.
Thank you very much for the work.